Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the literally world-changing life of William Carey. This is a guy whose absolute sheer determination totally transformed the history of Christian missions. We're going to unpack exactly how one single individual, starting from honestly incredibly humble beginnings, managed to leave a legacy that completely reshaped global Christianity. And, we really have to start with his most famous challenge. It's a bold vision that continues to inspire millions of people today. Expect great things from God. Attempt great things for God. Now, the sheer audacity of this statement is striking when you actually consider where Carey came from. I mean, this absolutely wasn't the motto of some wealthy aristocrat or a highly educated scholar. So, the really crucial point we're looking at is this. How in the world did an impoverished apprentice shoemaker, someone who actually left school as a teenager, how did he manage to leave such a massive world-altering legacy? Seriously, how do you go from repairing shoes in a tiny shop to becoming widely known as the father of modern missions? Well, let's get into Section 1, From Shoemaker to Visionary. Okay, to really understand the foundation that prepared him for the world stage, we've got to look at his beginnings. Born in 1761 in a place called Pollersbury, Carey was raised in pretty deep poverty and actually had to leave school early just to become an apprentice shoemaker. But here's the thing. His mind was constantly exploring. He absolutely loved studying nature, poring over maps of distant countries, and getting lost in foreign languages. He was the definition of a lifelong learner. He literally taught himself new subjects and languages right there at his workbench while repairing shoes. That habit, that rigorous self-directed education, well, that set the stage for the whole shebang. Moving on to Section 2, Defying the Status Quo. Right, so after coming to faith and becoming a Baptist preacher, Carey started reading about explorers like James Cook, and it hit him. Christians needed to share the gospel globally. But man, he faced a massive hurdle. The prevailing mindset of the established church in the 1700s was basically, hey, overseas missions are totally unnecessary. God's going to save people without human effort. But Carey, he fiercely disagreed. He argued that the command to make disciples applied to absolutely every generation. And let me tell you, he was not going to take no for an answer. The momentum of his life really picked up fast after that. In 1792, he publishes this highly influential little book called An Inquiry and helps establish the Baptist Missionary Society, which basically launched the modern Protestant missionary movement. And then just 1 year later, talk about putting your money where your mouth is, he backs up those words with action, packing up and sailing to India with his family. He would eventually pass away there in Serampore in 1834. That brings us to Section 3, Trials in Distant Lands. Now, arriving in India, definitely not an instant triumph. Actually, it was the beginning of his deepest and most painful trials. Carey's early years there were brutal. He faced crushing financial problems, battled devastating tropical diseases, hit massive language barriers in a totally foreign culture, and, most tragically, he suffered the loss of one of his young sons. It's heartbreaking. Yet, despite all these overwhelming personal and physical trials, he stubbornly refused to abandon his calling. So, let's look at Section 4, the Serampore Trio. Out of those intense early struggles emerged this incredibly powerful alliance. Settling in a place called Serampore, Carey partnered up with fellow missionaries Joshua Marshman and William Ward. And together, these three built an expansive operational center. I mean, they didn't just preach and establish churches. They were opening educational schools, operating printing presses, translating the Bible, and actively promoting widespread literacy all across 19th century Asia. It was a real game changer. Which leads perfectly into Section 5, Translating and Transforming. You see, Carey possessed this extraordinary, almost unbelievable linguistic capacity. Under his leadership, parts, or even all, of the Bible were translated into dozens of Asian languages and dialects. We're talking Bengali, Sanskrit, Marathi, and so many others. By helping to produce dictionaries and grammar books, he made the scriptures accessible to literally millions of people in their native languages, people who had never, ever been able to read them before. But his work extended far beyond just translation. He was a tireless advocate for justice and social development in Indian society. He championed better education for children of all backgrounds. He pushed for increased opportunities for women, and he notably stood in strong, vocal opposition to sati, which was the tragic practice where widows were actually burned on their husbands' funeral pyres. He realized early on that true, lasting transformation meant spreading both literacy and justice throughout the entire culture. And finally, Section 6, the legacy of a plotter. So you're probably wondering, how did one ordinary guy achieve all of this across so many different highly complex fields? Well, the answer kind of lies in the number 40 plus. This represents the sheer stubborn dedication of William Carey. He spent over 40 years serving in India without ever permanently returning to England. Think about the level of steadfast commitment that requires. 40 unbroken years of continuous daily service. It's just wild to think about. The secret to his monumental success wasn't some innate flashing brilliance or a magical lack of failure. It was actually a foundational trait he proudly claimed for himself. He was a plotter. Now, a plotter is simply someone who works with slow, persevering, and diligent effort. It is not glamorous, not at all, but man, is it incredibly effective. In fact, Carey openly admitted he couldn't boast of any extraordinary talent. He once stated, "If one should think it worth his while to write my life, if he gives me credit for being a plotter, he will describe me justly." He truly believed that his faithful persistence in a definite pursuit was his defining characteristic. It was his simple, stubborn perseverance that allowed him to accomplish such great things. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this thought. Carey changed the history of Christian missions just by plotting. If the simple, stubborn perseverance of a teenage shoemaker can launch a modern global movement, translate dozens of languages, and transform entire societies, what could your everyday, ordinary perseverance accomplish? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating life with me today. And hey, always remember the incredible power of just showing up every single day.